map of Latvia, and this is the region where the costume is from. And this is the Bay of Riga, and this is where I was born, right around here. The town Riga, which is the capital of Latvia, which is part of the Western Latvia is Courland, and so Riga is sort of part of Courland. My mother's from around here, and my father's from this region.
Okay, being short and smaller stature, is it hard to find costumes that fit you?
It's been hard to find whether it's costumes or clothes. That's been a challenge all my life. This particular costume was I shortened it by about this much, and I still have that fabric. I'm trying to think about something interesting to do with it because it's a beautiful weave, and I don't want to just toss it. The vest was, usually the waist is in the wrong place. The waist is just much too long, and so I did quite a bit of tailoring on the vest. And with the blouse, it wasn't that much of a challenge because half of it is getting covered up anyway, so that was easier to fit. But the other two pieces I really worked. And the other thing is I had bought it and I wanted to send my uncle a picture of me in that costume. So it was a challenge, and I had a deadline, and I worked on it, and I have a picture of me wearing it with Ernie, and then I sent my uncle the picture, and he was very pleased. So.
Is he was the last one?
He was the last. He kept calling himself the last of the Mohicans. He was the youngest of 9 siblings, 7 boys and 2 girls. Of the 7 boys, 4 died in World War II. And the survivors were 1 brother in South Africa, 1 brother who lived in Riga, and himself, Balfour. And he just passed away a few years ago in his mid-80s, something like that.
So basically, just want to talk about how you got into folk dancing. Why do you keep folk dancing? Or any stories, people you met, or what was your favorite, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I got into folk dancing in 1984. I had bumped into folk dancing earlier in my life. There was some Israeli dancing in youth groups. I lived in Israel in my high school years. But at the time, my peers who were born there and lived there all their lives, they sort of grew up with it. They weren't learning anything anymore. They just knew. And I wasn't quick enough to just pick it up. I always loved to dance, but I was not in the right place to pick it up from them. There was some teaching for other new immigrants. I wasn't part of that group, so I was never right, and I always loved to dance, but just didn't work out. And then in Washington, D.C., there was a woman, I think her name was either Rosenberg or Rosenthal. It's not one of the famous Rosenbergs, but she taught a class at Eastern Market as a fundraiser for Capitol Hill Day School. 4 weeks of, I think we met once a week on Wednesday nights. I liked it a lot. What I'm really disappointed about, and this was 1975, 76, after the class was over, she did not say, well, if you like that sort of thing, there's a Monday night group in Bethesda, there's a Tuesday night group at Foggy Bottom, there's this, there's that, and the other. Nothing. It was like it was in a vacuum. And I could have been dancing 10 years earlier and really come in at a different, when the folk dancing was much, much larger than it was when I started. But I'm still grateful I found it when when I needed it most. I went, I think in 1984 I separated from my husband, and went on a trip, and that was wonderful. And then I came home, and my daughter was home from college, and then she left, and then a really good friend of mine in the city, he moved away, and I was really, it was November '84, and I remember it very clearly. And I was sort of down in the dumps, and it was a weekend. I wasn't quite sure what to do with myself. I could have just done nothing. Instead, I gave myself a push, and I went to the Biograph, which was a repertory theater in Georgetown, right there on M, prominent position, grand old place. Now it's a CVS, unfortunately. Went to the movie, and there was a flyer from Jamie saying International Folk Dancing, meeting every Thursday, call it here and such. And so I called Jamie, this was a week before Thanksgiving, he meets on Thursdays, and he said, yes, they do meet, and I'd be welcome, but next Thursday is Thanksgiving, so they don't meet, and I went Thursday after Thanksgiving, and it was like revelation. I was hooked from the first evening. I had been to another group in DC, but there people were old, which was not a problem. But again, they knew all the dances, and there was no teaching. And again, I felt like, well, if I can pick this up, fine. If not, I'm going to feel out of place. So that came and went. But Jamie's in November '84. This was it. He's a wonderful teacher. He will teach you to walk. He can't walk. I mean, he's really that good. And the other thing is, this is '84, so I was in my early 40s. You don't care so much about how you look. When you're a teenager or college age or whatever, if somebody says, oh, you're a little stiff, well, that may be the end of it. You're not even going to try. I didn't care what I looked like. Whether I was stiff or not stiff or awkward, it's totally irrelevant. And Jamie teaches a solid hour from 7:30 to 8:30 to rank beginners, and 8:30 to 9:30, he still follows the same pattern. 8:30 to 9:30, he does intermediate, and then it's an hour and a half or whatever of request dancing. And as I said, it was a revelation. First of all, I could dance till I dropped. I didn't need a partner. That was wonderful. And I could learn all those dances, and so I started going. After work, I would walk 10 blocks from the office to Jamie's on 23rd Street and do the hour beginners, and then I'd sort of do a little bit of intermediate, but by that time I was pretty tired, the walk and the dancing. And I would sit there and watch and then participate in as much of the request dancing as I could. And then I started looking for other groups. About a year into that activity, Jamie and his then girlfriend and about 6 others from that group were going to Buffalo Gap. Never heard of Buffalo Gap. And they said, oh, it was wonderful, you got to go. And I was a very spastic driver at the time. I mean, I was very cautious. I hadn't driven much. I had started driving very late in life. But motivation is everything. And there was another woman there, good friend of mine, Trish. And so she said, oh yeah, let's go. So the two of us sort of encouraged each other. And I remember asking at my office, they said, you have to go out 66, how did I get on 66? And there was one woman there who understood my problem, because other people said, what's her problem? She said, you get on Constitution, and you just stay on Constitution, and then you take the Constitution. Really if you stay in the right lane or left lane or whatever, it becomes 66, piece of cake. So Trish and I came to Buffalo Gap. And my daughter was home from college that weekend. It was Labor Day weekend. And I spent the weekend at Buffalo Gap. Steve was there. Petsa Danosovsky was teaching. Steve was there with he was teaching Mezőségi, Hungarian, Transylvanian, and he had some live musicians. I don't remember their name. It's way beyond me. And Marianne Taylor was teaching contras. And I saw some faces I'd seen before. It was magical. I mean, I came home and my feet didn't touch the ground. And in fact, I walked up the stairs on Monday night when I came home, and my daughter looked at me and she said, "You look like a different person." I mean, literally. It was that kind of a transformation. So then, I continued, then I found out, oh, there's a Tuesday night group, there's Tuesday night group. Off I go Tuesdays. And then somebody says there's a Friday night group. So off I went to Wheaton, and it became, and until then, actually going to work and earning my own keep I thought was pretty good, and I was quite happy. But my interest in work just fell straight off, because I had something that really turned me on, and so that's basically the story of how I got into it. And 2 years later, I met Ernie at Memorial Day 1986. Well, this is 2 years after I started dancing. It was a year after my first camp. And so then I wound up having a partner for the partner dances, and so that expanded the horizon. But the crux of the matter is still that you can dance whether you have a partner or you don't have a partner, whether they're in the mood or not, or out of town or whatever, or you've just broken up, it doesn't matter. You can dance. If you love to dance, you can dance. And that to me was heaven. So that's about it.
Do you have, it seems that folk dancing is going down. Do you have any insight into why that might be, or what we could do to change that?
People have lots and lots of theories, especially people who run groups, and they think if they run a group a certain way. I think people who encounter folk dancing, they just bump into it, happen to walk into it. It either grabs them or it doesn't. If it grabs them, they'll be back. If it doesn't grab them, maybe they're also looking to meet somebody, quote unquote, and if the group is tiny, they know that there's nothing there. So when college students used to come to dances, and there were a lot of people there, it was a great place to also meet somebody. That's no longer the case. So if it grabs them, they'll be back. If it doesn't, there is nothing you really can do to make them come back. Jamie has probably in our area made the most efforts to really encourage, not true, Phyllis Diamond also does a lot, to encourage newcomers to come and to teach them and to make them feel welcome, etc. Some folk dance leaders will lean over backward, and if there are a lot of beginners on that particular night, they will only play easy dances that are easy for beginners to get into, in the hope that they will be back. I have watched groups, make these efforts, and I have watched beginners come and go. They come for a month or 2 or 3, and then eventually you'll never see them again. And that happens over and over and over again. So just structuring your group to with the purpose of making beginners stay is just not going to work. I do believe that even the beginners need to see something to aspire to. So yesterday I can do the Lesnar throw, and I can do the easy Romanian dance, etc. But if I keep coming, then I'll be able to do the more difficult dance again. And yes, and you should encourage them and say it really isn't that hard. After a while, I always tell people, all those steps repeat in different combinations and permutations in the dance. After a while, it's like an alphabet. And if you've done a pas de basque, once, you'll do it a zillion times. It repeats in all the nationalities. and don't be intimidated, and sometimes it's just fast, but it's really not that hard to do, etc. So yes, of course, encourage them by all means, but there is no magic bullet. I don't think so. They have young people have so many different choices. I mean, salsa is big, and contras actually are big, and Israeli dancing is big. So I don't know why we're not as popular as we used to be. I really don't know what the reason is. And then maybe it comes in waves. I have no idea. But I don't have an answer to what would make a difference. Phyllis, I know, does. She teaches beginners on Monday night in a special session, and there actually she has managed to have beginners come and learn, and then keep coming back, which is very welcoming. She does a good job, and so does Jamie. But there is no magic bullet, as I said. Don't know. It's too bad for us, but we've had our fun, so it's their loss. Okay.
That's true. That's true.
I understand that there's a folk dancing is making a revival in Bulgaria. Were you here when Daniela taught? She had was that last year? She did a little culture corner, and she said it's big now in Bulgaria. And of course, they turn it into a competitive sport. You got groups, you get prizes, you get first prize, second prize, third prize. You turn it into a thing. High school and early college, something like that. But at least they no longer look down their noses at me saying, well, for years in Eastern Europe, it was something that was sort of pushed onto them because it was the Communist Party's idea of, folklore. And so that was coercive, so people turned around to, leave me alone. So now they're rediscovering their folklore, and they love it, and it's coming back, and the Hungarians are doing well too. There it never really slacked off, and they've had dance houses for decades, and encourage it, and so that's good. Actually, I think maybe in Europe there is a little revival. I don't know. Don't want to oversell it. But when I go back to Europe, I see more events advertised than I used to. So maybe sort of creeping back. I don't know, but we shouldn't give up.
Ai de dušo konja da proda.